Hey guys, welcome back. So for this one, we're getting into part 1 of 3 for the Amazing Spider-Man Blood Hunt tie-ins. And if you enjoy these videos, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications so we can squad up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so for the Amazing Spider-Man Blood Hunt tie-in part 1, this picks up not long after Sundeath, where like we saw a ton of Dark Force users were turned into portals to the Dark Force dimension, at the same time releasing Dark Force energy into the upper atmosphere to block out the sun, which allowed the next phase of this attack to kick in with vampires just running wild everywhere. And with this being the current situation, you would think Spider-Man would be out here fighting vampires, but he's not, because instead, while all this is going on, he's fighting the Lizard. And I'll admit, when I saw this, I had to swipe back over to the cover just to make sure I was reading the right issue. But as it turns out, in the bigger picture, this starts to make more sense when we find out why the Lizard came here looking for Spider-Man. Because with vampires running around everywhere, Peter was just blindsided by this attack. And I mean, as blindsided as someone could be who has a spider sense, but it isn't too long before Peter finds out what's going on here, because suddenly the Lizard stops attacking. Because as it turns out, the Lizard was sent here by Misty Knight, who after recent events found herself working with Dr. Connors after her and Colleen were following a tip that mentioned the Lizard and Dr. Michael Morbius were working together on a cure. But Misty and Colleen's investigation went left when someone else got involved who also wanted the cure. And we'll see who that someone is in a moment. But when this person stepped in, they brought a lot of vampires with them, and they ended up taking both Colleen and Morbius. So now Misty and the Lizard need all the help they can get, which is what brought them here to recruit Spider-Man. Because the Lizard's strong, but he's not necessarily the best person to coordinate an attack with. So Misty tells Peter she knows where they're being held, since she was able to put a tracker on Morbius, but when they get to the location, the building is surrounded by vampires, with the tracker tagging Morbius on the 46th floor. So Spidey swings up top to take a look, only to find out that the building is empty, and Misty's tracker's just sitting up there, which likely means this was all just a setup for her to walk into, or at the least a distraction, but nonetheless this puts her back at square one with no leads. But not long after Peter comes back to fill her in, he asks her if there's any chance that the Lizard might know how to track Morbius down. And Misty's like not really sure. Why? So he tells her because this guy's up to something. Because out of nowhere the Lizard just takes off. So Peter follows the Lizard from above, as Misty grabs her bike so she can keep up, only to find that the Lizard ends up leading them to what seems to be an abandoned church. And it seems pretty odd at first because most any other church, mosque, or synagogue is packed right now with people trying to get away from the vampires. But when they get here, a secret door opens up, and the Lizard steps out, telling them to follow him inside, because underneath is a secret laboratory that belongs to the Beyond Corporation. And this just goes back to what we saw a couple years ago, which feels crazy to say, because man, time flies. But this goes back to the time when we saw Ben Reilly accept the Beyond Corporation's offer to become Spider-Man, since they had the trademark. So for a little while, both Ben and Peter were Spider-Man at the same time. But back around that time, both Ben and Peter teamed up with Misty and Colleen, after Ben discovered that the Beyond Corporation had a supervillain program on Staten Island, which was filled with all sorts of weird projects, with their biggest one being a vampire lizard, which was a hybrid between Dr. Connors and Dr. Morbius. So after leading Misty and Spider-Man here, the Lizard tells them that they can probably use something in this lab to find Morbius. And I mean, the Lizard's not really able to get all the words out, but Misty's able to put it together. Because at a first glance, Misty's able to put together that this is one of the labs that Monica Rambeau missed when she went on her cleanup tour to get rid of the different labs, as well as any of the random Beyond villains that were associated with them. And I want to say around that time she also got help from Machine Man, who for a brief time was helping the Beyond Corporation with this program. But while Misty's seeing if she can use anything here to figure out where these vampires took Colleen and Mike, which is what she calls Morbius, Dr. Mike, but while she's looking, the Lizard wanders off again, because as it turns out, there's a ton of vampires banging at the front door. So Peter and the Lizard fight them off for a moment to give Misty some extra time to pinpoint a location, which eventually she does. So Peter webs up the door as Misty shows them a back way out of the church. And once they make their way outside, she tells Spider-Man that she's found some footage of them uptown, along with a couple of addresses that might turn something up. So for a moment here, Peter's like, okay, I'll go check them out and report back. Only for Misty to tell him no, because there's another stop that she wants to make first. So Peter goes along with it, and it takes them to another church where Misty introduces Spider-Man to Father Matthias, because she wants him to bless their weapons before they head uptown. And even outside of this church, you got a ton of people armed with super soakers that are fully loaded with holy water, so these people are ready to get to it. But even with the perimeter they have set up, there's moments here where a vampire may get through, and fortunately Spider-Man's able to save the minister before this vampire gets to him. But leading up to this, and even now with Misty kinda just hand-feeding Spider-Man information as they go, Spider-Man's not really feeling it. And I mean, for a moment here, he entertains the idea of getting their weapons blessed, so he ends up giving Father Matthias a bunch of his web cartridges. But at the same time, because Spider-Man feels like Misty's hiding something, he just tells them that he's not sure if shooting their way through is the way to go about this, as far as getting to Morbius and Colleen, so he tells them that he's gotta go and check something out first. And so of course, after leaving, because there are vampires everywhere, he ends up saving a person or two while he's making his way through the city. But come to find out, Peter's making his way back to the underground Beyond Corporation lab, cause a lot of things that have been going on here just ain't been adding up. And it's not to say that he doesn't trust Misty or he thinks that she's up to anything nefarious, but she's undoubtedly withholding information, and that just doesn't sit right with Peter. So when he goes back to the lab, he finds information on Maxine Danger, the Beyond Corporation CEO, which, I mean, I think her connection to the Beyond Corporation is pretty obvious. But this now has Peter suspicious and asking, what does any of this have to do with a cure? Cause even aside from Misty giving Peter the minimum coverage throughout all this, he also finds it odd how, with there being so many easy targets just out there on the street, an insane number of vampires attack them at the secret lab, and it almost seemed like it was orchestrated. So following this, Peter makes his way back to Misty, Dr. Connors, and Father Matthias, and another dude who looks like James Gordon with a water gun. But nonetheless, once again, when Peter gets here, he finds that there are way more vampires attacking here who could have found much easier targets anywhere else on the street. And following this, we end up jumping over to Colleen and Morbius, who are currently tied up and being taken to an undisclosed location. And along the way, Colleen ends up picking the lock on her handcuffs, and shortly after freeing Morbius. But instead of just breaking out of this Beyond Corporation truck, they've noticed that it slowed down like they've got to their destination. So they just wait inside for someone to open the door before they come out swinging. And after taking out a couple of these vampire guards in this garage area, cause really it's only like 2 of them that's here, they end up taking a look further into this building to where now, as it would seem, they've arrived at a corporation being ran by vampires. And it's one of those things where as soon as they step out of the elevator, there are vampires everywhere. So it leaves them no other choice but to fight their way through a ton of these guys. But all of a sudden, in the middle of this all-out brawl, where vampires are coming after these guys from every angle, all of a sudden, they stop attacking. And I mean, except for one of them who bites Colleen cause she let her guard down, and that was dumb. But following this, we get the big reveal that shows us who's behind this corporation that's being run by vampires. And come to find out, it's TJ. You know, the guy who showed up in the Hallows Eve miniseries that we didn't cover. Well, as it turns out, he now goes by Theocritus. And I hope I'm saying that right. No, I don't care. But in his case, it's one of those things where when he was at the Beyond Corporation, he was supposedly just like some nobody, or as he would describe, an insignificant man. So now with him putting together what he calls this new startup, Hemoglobin Incorporated, he's looking to do something more significant and be someone more significant by helping Michael Morbius finish his cure. Which now has me wanting to ask you guys, which one do you think's gonna come first? Dr. Michael Morbius actually making a cure? Or us finally getting GTA 6? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.